Just quick request to everyone to keep themselves mute, except our speakers, of course, who we definitely want to hear more of. And then we are set to start. Thank you very much for joining. I mean, we're doing this for the second time now, and that you're supporting us with your presence is very much appreciated. You'll hear a lot from me maybe today, but I can assure you there's a whole team behind this initiative from the NICCT under the leadership of our chairman, Edith, who you all know very well, and all our board members, and also Jelke, who's providing the technical support with his colleague Arthur and Patricia. So to everybody, we are very grateful, but most of all to the audience for participating today, and our speakers who are dialing in, one from India and two from the Netherlands. So I'm going to start off without going too much into detailed introductions of our speakers who we told you about in the invitation itself, and they'll introduce themselves briefly. So we thought we'll start with an overview by Flynn Feenstra of NL Business. And NL Business is, of course, an organization which is supporting companies when it comes to international trade. And they've just finished a large research on the impact of COVID-19 on Dutch entrepreneurs abroad. So I would like to invite Flynn to enlighten us on some of the findings in this research. Flynn, welcome to the stage, and would you just very quickly just introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much, Vitya. So yeah, my name is Flynn Feenstra. I work as a business developer for NL Business, and we are a platform for international business. And what we do is connecting Dutch businesses to business networks around the world, providing information, online training, events, and so on. I've been an active member of the NICCT for 2 years now, and I'm really glad to contribute to this webinar. And Vijay, like you said, we just finished a large research on the impact of the corona virus on Dutch businesses, entrepreneurs around the world. So what we did is we asked 750 Dutch companies in all kinds of markets in the European Union and outside the European Union to assess the impact. And you asked me to quickly share a few of the results. And
yes, please.
So I will do. And so first of all, as you can all expect, the impact is huge. So 90% of these companies, they fear a decline in turnover over 2020. And the average is a 46% decline in turnover, but it's up to 60% for smaller companies and 25% for the multinational firms. And this is mainly, in many cases caused by losing clients and orders, unpaid bills, and disrupted supply chains. And that's both within and outside the European Union. So many of these 750 respondents, they said it's for them impossible, even to get personnel over the Dutch and Belgian border, or to go to France, visit clients, get goods from Italy to Germany, to factories. Another really pressing issue is that many companies, they lack the support that business in the Netherlands gets. So I think our government is doing a great job in providing all kinds of stimulus packages for our businesses, but for many Dutch businesses abroad, it's much more difficult because, of course, some countries in the world, they have also these kind of stimulus policies, but many have not. And what we also notice is that some 40% of the respondents, they said that many of these stimulus packages, they have a kind of a hint of protectionism in it. So also within the European Union, for instance, in Spain or Italy, a lot of respondents said that they feel that for them it's much more difficult to make to use all these stimulus packages of these governments. But they also feel that trade barriers often are higher for them as a foreign link company than they are for local companies. So really this protectionism, both within and outside of the EU, that's a really pressing issue. And then another thing that struck is that many of the respondents also, they they weren't aware of the support that the Dutch government can offer them, or they didn't feel supported. It's almost 75% wasn't aware of didn't feel supported. And of course, you know, the policies for the Netherlands, they only apply for companies within the Netherlands. But we also have, of course, a great network of embassies and consulates that are that I think have been really busy in repatriating, of course, the Netherlands, and that they are quite understaffed right now. But we also feel that there is a sense that we also really need to use this network also to address all these issues of protectionisms and of supply chains that don't work anymore. So I think these are three headlines from the research. So great impact, many supply chain issues, and also kind of protectionism in many countries.
Okay, thank you very much, Flynn. Just a question from my side. The NICCT, but NL in business organizations such as ours support companies when it comes to international trade. Now, obviously, you're saying, and we all are experiencing it, much has changed. So especially on these fronts, what would companies practically look for? Do you have some examples of practical help that companies would need at the moment?
Yes. So what we heard a lot in this research, it's that more than half of the respondents, they are really looking for inspiration, for best practices. So you know, how do my colleagues or other companies in India or Malaysia, you know, Dutch business in India or Malaysia, how do they cope with the crisis? What kind of new opportunities do they see? You know, can we adapt our business model? What are the opportunities for e-commerce and so on? And they are really looking. It's also a question we asked. You know, how do you use your Chamber of Commerce networks for this? And they are looking really at these kind of organizations for such best practices. So you know, that's why I also think that these kind of webinars, they are great, and that Mr. Oosterlaken from Kiremco is also here to share his experience. Yeah, so I think that's a really important thing. So you know, share the best practices of how you know, Dutch entrepreneurs globally successfully cope with the crisis. And after this research, we got 200 of the respondents that approached us or said you can approach us to share our story. So this is something that we will pick up in the weeks to come, and to see how we can easily share 200 stories, because it's a lot, but yeah, we really see the added value of the inspirational aspect.
So people are suffering from isolation clearly and want to talk and want to network, and there's a role for us. That's an important point. Just one question, and then I'm going to indeed jump to Paul Oosterlaken from Kiremco. So from your perspective, what are the opportunities that you see, or that entrepreneurs see, that might help them in this post-COVID period?
Yeah, so one of the lessons that I think already learned from this Corona period is that when it comes to trade, there are still there is a lot of opportunity to work on digitalization. So I think one concrete example, which I really liked, is from one of our partners in the Netherlands who worked as a market expansion service provider, and they work mainly for mid-cap companies in the Netherlands. And one of their clients is a machine producer, and just before the crisis broke out, the Corona crisis, they sold a machine to a party in Turkey. But then all the airline, you know, the air travel got banned, and they couldn't actually close the deal, because normally they send an engineer to install the machine, right, from the Netherlands.
Okay.
So first they thought we need to cancel the deal, but then, you know, our partner, just the service provider, they convinced their client to see if they could do this digitally. So in the end, what they did from the office, their office in Turkey, they sent someone with an iPad, and they looked for some engineers in Turkey, and they set up a video connection. And then the engineer in the Netherlands, they gave them directions to install the machine. So and this isn't revolutionary, but it's not standard practice either. So we think these kind of things can really, this period can really serve as a catalyst to, standardize these kind of things. And another example that I would like to mention is when it comes to trade promotion. So last week we got in het Financieel Dagblad, thanks to our announcement that we would start a digital hub in San Francisco together with Holland in the Valley and the Consulate General over there. And this digital hub really needs to help Dutch business in their soft landing. And one of the things they will do is hosting digital trade missions. And because I think yearly we have 1,000 of trade missions from the Netherlands going all over the world, which is really good, but also is it necessary to do this much? And what we want to do with this digital trade missions is to see if we can online already connect sellers and buyers, customers and clients from the Netherlands and America with each other. And we're also working on a digital showcase to, in VR, show products of Dutch business with potential clients in the USA and California. And what we think, if you can do these kind of things, you can really, of course, you still have to go there because you have to look each other in the eyes before you close a deal. But let's say you would, normally need to go there 6-7 times to sell your product. Then we think by these kind of initiatives, for instance, digital trade missions, you can really, take away the first or the second trip. So it will save you a lot of time, money, and also from an environmental perspective, this provides an opportunity. So I think these are two examples of things that we see. So possible post-corona opportunities.
Yeah, or cutting the reliance on at least the old-fashioned way of doing things. So you have more options. That's great, Flynn. I think it was a very concise summary of your survey, and I'm going to jump straight to Paul Oosterlaken, and we'll come back to you definitely with questions, etc.
Sure.
Thanks. And Mr. Oosterlaken, if I can immediately ask you, because I know you have attended a few trade missions to India. So what do you make of the digital trade mission? Please do introduce yourself very briefly.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Oosterlaken. I'm the CEO of Kiremco, and we build potato processing equipment, and that means we supply processing lines to all major food processors worldwide. And yes, and we are active in India for over 20 years already. To get back to your question, the trade missions, I joined several of them. I don't know how many anymore. I always enjoy them a lot. And yes, you need to look people into their eyes. You need to experience the culture, the behavior of people. So a digital trade mission I would welcome as a start. Maybe it's a selection at the gate or a pre-selection before you go. But I would not miss the opportunity to go there myself and to meet people. Although we cannot shake hands anymore and we've got to stay away 5-6 feet from each other, seeing someone's body language and looking into the eyes is always much better than looking to a digital screen. That's my view.
Sure.
Yeah. You've asked me to share what we experience, and
yes,
also, of course, related to India. Our company builds, as I said, potato processing equipment, and these are big projects. So we do not suffer a lot at the moment from all the restrictions. What Flynn already said, we should be very grateful how the Dutch government has handled this. As we operate worldwide, we see a lot of differences. But if you look at Belgium, France, Spain, Italy, how they shut down the total economy, we were allowed to continue. And of course, we had to make adjustments. After the first rules came out, of course, we had a lot of people that were scared or were looking for an extra holiday, and we missed about 50% of all our staff members. And that has been gradually reduced. The fear has gone away. The staff members have seen how we responded to it. So now we miss maybe 4 or 5%. While normally we have a sickness level between 2.5% and 3%, and it's now around 4 or 5. So it's doable. We always have a huge workload, so we are still continuing producing equipment that we have to ship. And we have another benefit, that our customers belong to the essential industry because they process food. And that also means, for instance, that at the moment we are installing a major project in Belgium at the moment. I even have been to Belgium myself because we get documents and I can cross the border anytime I want to go there and to talk to our customers. So that's a huge benefit. And I know this does not apply to all entrepreneurs, so we might consider ourselves lucky. What we also see is that the corporate companies are delaying their investments. And the corporate ones, I mean the big ones that are operating worldwide. In Europe, in North and South America, they are in China. And everything has been delayed for at least 6 months. In September, we will have another look at it. So that created a big dent in our workload for the second half year. So we had to look at that, how we can do that. But on the other hand, we saw the smaller companies, more or less the family-owned companies, they now see opportunities. They see opportunities because most of our customers, they produce French fries, they produce potato chips, they produce ready meals. But some of them, they also produce potato flake. Let's call it potato powder. And worldwide, there is now, I don't know the English word, there are too much potatoes that will not be processed into...
A surplus, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for that. But they can be transferred into flake. And flake is a commodity, and it does not take special care for storage. It's not frozen. You put it in a paper bag, and you put it in the corner of the room. And if you keep the water and the mice away, in 2 years' time, it will still be there. So a whole bunch of smaller companies approached us. How fast can we build flake lines to process the surplus of potatoes? So that opens doors for us. Also in India, we suffer from big projects, major projects that have been postponed. On the other hand, talks are still ongoing with other Indian customers. And yes, we don't know how it will carry on. We are very fortunate that we've got our own office in Delhi, that we've got our own staff members in Delhi. And also in India, the food processing industry has benefits. And that means if our customers are in trouble, our people in India, they can travel between states and do their job and help our customers out. So that means we belong to the lucky ones, so that we can still operate. On the other hand, what Flint just said with his VR, we are installing at the moment also a very, very big line in Maine, in North America, in the US. And while the US were in lockdown, they are on the East Coast, on the West Coast. Some of our staff members stayed there for 10 weeks on a row. They couldn't come home and go back, but once they were there, they could stay. Customer happy. And now we are arranging the startup with AR, with augmented reality, directed from Holland. So that was something we have never done before as well. So also that's new to us. But it means we can still help them starting up the line, and we can see what they can see, and we can show them pictures while they are looking at a switchboard, and we can project other pictures in front of them so they can see where the failures are or how to operate. If at the moment, yes, we are aware of all the regulations and all the support that Dutch companies can get from the Dutch government. We don't qualify for that at the moment, and I will be very hesitating to ask for that support because we don't need it. And I'm very grateful for the Dutch government that they have created this support for the people that really need it. But I also am a little bit disappointed, of course, in other companies that don't need it, but still say, hey, we qualify, so let's get it. And if we are getting into trouble, then that will be somewhere next year. It depends if the big projects that have been postponed at the moment will not be picked up in 6 to 9 months' time. Then yes, we can get into trouble as well. And I'm very doubtful if the deep pockets of our government haven't reached the bottom at that moment. But we have to experience it then. I'm not worried about it at the moment because I have learned not to worry about stuff that I don't have any influence on. So.
Yeah, spoken like a true entrepreneur, Paul. Thank you so much for that. So what I hear you say is pick up on some things that Flynn also said, that there are opportunities that emerge to some degree, new business, let's say your new product line on flakes, AR being used. He had a digitization example. But the problems are still there. There is a time lag to the impact, which is still to manifest itself, and no one really knows. On the India side also, you made some comments, and that gives me a very good segue to bring in our speaker who can maybe, Manoj from India, who can enlighten us on the specific problems faced by people in India. You mentioned that you were slightly in a better position, but still, I think many of our audience would be curious to hear on that. And we'll come back to you with questions as well. And to the others, I'm looking at your questions in the chat, and I'll definitely take them up. But let's give a chance to Manoj to enlighten us on what is happening on the India front. And with Manoj, we thought he can talk about what is happening to the GDP and the government measures, the policy changes specifically to encourage investment in India, packages to incentivize shifting manufacturing to India, what are the reforms that India may do, etc. So things like that. So Manoj, the floor is yours, and then we can have a full-on debate towards the last part of this debate. So over to you.
Thanks, Vidya, for the warm introduction. So first of all, a very good evening to all of you. I hope all of your family and colleagues are safe and healthy. And I would also like to thank NICCT team for having me here. And as Vidya stated, I will just briefly touch upon the COVID-19 impact on Indian economy and Indian business at large. So as Flynn stated in his survey, something similar is happening in India and business are badly impacted. And I also echo to sentiments of Paul, where even today I had a conversation with a Dutch CEO who was facing trouble in India because his factory shut, and now with partial opening up, is slowly starting production. But however, due to lack of demand, they have a lot of stock piled up, and they are hopeful that this COVID-19 impact will be it will, by end of the year, it should be better, and so that they can start their trade or business as usual. So, like any other economy, Indian economy is also going through recession right now because of this pandemic, and because of the lockdown, business disruptions, and COVID-19 related spendings. So these are primary reason why the government is going through recession, and there are a lot of shortage of cash. While they have a lot of intent to give stimulus, financial stimulus, but they have a lot of cash crunch, which is happening at the both central government level and also at the provincial state level. So at this stage, no one can estimate how long the pandemic will last. So everything will depend upon the vaccine, which is required to fix this virus. So considering all this, the GDP projections of like in India currently is around 1 to 2%. For a country which was historically has done 6 to 7%, and which is one of the largest, second largest GDP or second largest economy in the world at large. So this 1 to 2% is really less, and this is also obviously at a risk that this may be further revised downwards, because this situation is very fluid, and it has impacted almost all sectors, manufacturing, service sectors, and there are at least 100 jobs of more than 100 million people at risk right now. It has badly impacted the unorganized sectors like small service providers, local traders, and domestic helps, and so on. And but it also impacted SMEs, small and medium enterprises, because of their labor-intensive working methodologies, and the disruption in the supply chain, and dependence on various factors, economic factors. Also, sectors like travel, hospitality, retail, real estate, which are dependent upon the consumer footfall and completely dependent on the economic movement, is also badly impacted. So they are, in my conversation with Dutch SMEs, what I heard from them is that they are halting all Indian expansion plans. Rather, they are just focusing on doing course corrections and bringing the existing business back on track. So that is what I heard of. And when we have conversations with the government to understand what are the measures they are taking, so we understand government has a lot of intent to minimize the COVID impact on the investors, the people at large, and also they also want to incentivize investment. So
how are they doing that?
Yeah, keeping this in mind, the government has announced many relaxation in the existing policies, so that regulatory burden, compliance burden is minimal on the companies operating. They also announced special incentive packages for certain sectors. While they are working on incentive package for SME sector, it is not announced yet. Again, the state and center both are working together. So we have to look forward to it. Like, they are talking about how to give wage support to SMEs, small and medium enterprises. They're also discussing how to give interest-free working capital, and also how to defer loan repayment. We call it a loan moratorium, and also some statutory payment, GST, statutory payments like GST, other taxes, how they can be deferred. And also they are discussing. Yeah, sorry.
I was just wondering, these measures, would they be valid for Dutch entrepreneurs who have, who are seeking to expand, or at least to consolidate right now their businesses in India? Because we also got a question from Dirk Boat, who is saying he's seeking to expand his engineering business in India. So would these incentives, etc., be applicable to Dutch entrepreneurs from here?
Yeah, so if Dutch it's actually these are applicable to all companies operating in India. So even if it is a Dutch promoter-owned company, this incentive should be applicable. And as per the normal laws, you cannot discriminate on these such incentive packages. But there are certain laws where they have some preferences given to Indian resident owned and controlled companies. But typically, when you announce stimulus package, even for Dutch promoter company, it is for the employees at large, who would be primarily Indians and other people who are impacted with the COVID. So keeping this in mind, we can fairly conclude that if they announce a stimulus package, it will be equally distributed among all the companies operating in India. And of course, subject to conditions and the turnover requirements and all that, whatever they will announce. And but this currently premature to say when they will announce. They're working on it, and it's very important to all SMEs companies to keep a track of it and start conversation with the concerned government agencies on so that they are not losing out any benefit.
You had also mentioned some relaxation of corporate tax, that is especially your specialty. So maybe that's an interesting point to go into.
Yeah. So before that, during this last 1 or 2 years, Indian government has worked upon the bringing down the effective tax rate. So whatever tax you pay on business operations. So how they have done it, like they have now base tax rates for companies only 15 and 22%, which are very competitive when you compare to all emerging economies, and even including the economies in Asia, maybe China, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines. So these rates are very competitive, and they've also announced removal of dividend distribution tax. So what used to happen, Vidya, when Dutch company operating in India used to distribute dividend, like when you have profits and you give the profits to shareholders, there used to be tax of 20 around 20%. So what they have done, they have done away with this tax, and for Dutch promoters, they can avail the treaty benefit the India Netherlands government is having, and they can bring down this tax rate to almost 5%. So tax leakage maybe only 5% vis-a-vis 20-21%. So that's a significant move for attracting Netherlands. And Netherlands is always always a destination through which all investors across the globe route investment into India. And such measures will further encourage investors to bring in investments through Netherlands. So that are the few reforms. Then in FDI policy, foreign direct investment policy, what they have done, they are trying to bring in all sectors on automatic route. So Indian economy was opened up only in 1991. Since then, they are consistently liberalizing it. Today, almost 90% FDI is under automatic route. What FDI means, if a Dutch promoter investing into Indian company, they have to follow the FDI policy. So today we have very liberal FDI policy. Only they have restricted or regulated. Now they want to regulate investors from China and other neighboring countries due to other reasons that more to do with the geopolitical reasons, other factors. But if you see at large, the policies are friendly, and they have also relaxed the regulation which governs lending. When Dutch company used to lend to Indian subsidiary or Indian entities, so they have to comply with the foreign exchange regulations. And what the Indian government has done, they have liberalized it, and now this policy is beneficial to almost all sectors. They are barring few sensitive sectors, like if you are operating in agri or say lottery betting and so on. They have identified few sectors. Otherwise, the policy is very liberal and it's relaxed this year. And government, along with the state government, the central government and state government together are working on the incentive packages. So as I said, there are special incentive packages for special sectors. For electronic sector, they recently announced $6 billion in incentive stimulus. So which is for companies who wish to set up manufacturing units in India, electronic manufacturing unit. And similarly, they are working on announcing incentive packages for other focus sectors, which of course includes many of the sectors in which Dutch companies are also interested in. Like it may include energy, and it also includes automotive and so on. And they want the intent of the government is to make India a global manufacturing and export hub. That with that intent, they are trying to relax all these policies and also trying to bring down the effective tax rate. And they are deputing more and more agencies, state agencies, who are asking who are a front desk or acting as a single point of contact for investors. So Ministry of Commerce is having one dedicated SPOC, and they even have SPOCs for various regions. Similarly, other ministries are also having SPOCs. And today, as we are moving forward in this COVID, so what we have seen, everything is moving digital. So India was following very conventional style of working, where everything was moving in papers. Today, courts are digital. There are cases which are heard in Supreme Court, High Courts in digital mode. Even government is giving meeting to digital mode. So you don't have to travel to India to meet senior government officials. You can get into VC or audio conference with government officials. They're open to it, and they are getting used to Zoom calls. So in fact, I heard from
Okay. So let me, on that very positive note, let me just stop you there for a second. So you've said a number of interesting things. I see a couple of questions here which I've parked. Just before we open up the discussion to the audience, I'd just like Paul and Flynn to quickly respond to this broad range of reforms and incentive packages that the Indian government has announced, and how you think it will affect the appetite and let's say to allay the fears of Dutch entrepreneurs, but also to attract them. So maybe Paul, you can comment on that, and then Flynn, and then we can open up to a few questions. Please bear with me, I'll come to you on all the questions.
We have I hear myself back. I don't know where from.
I think somebody needs to mute themselves if you don't mind. Otherwise, we'll keep hearing an echo. Please check. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
In our program was already the plan to set up our own manufacturing unit in India. Whatever scheme the Indian government makes, it will be helpful, it might be useful, but it will never be the goal or the trigger to do it or not. If you're going to set up a manufacturing unit in whatever country, but in this particular case in India, it should be sustainable on its own. And yes, every help you can get from the Indian government is more than welcome, especially in making things a lot easier, but it will not be the reason to go there. One of the reasons to go there is that we want to be closer to our customers. Now, the food processing industry is developing in India, and what we expected finally happening. We have a setback with the COVID-19. But that will not change. Yes, a lot of people die, but the population of India will still grow, and they all need to eat. India has got to produce and to manufacture all the food themselves and not importing food. No, India will be indeed a manufacturing hub to produce food and to supply Southeast Asia. One reason to carry on with the investment in India, or with the plans to invest in India, is also our corporate social responsibility that we've got. At the moment, we ship a lot of stuff into India, which can also be manufactured into India. So, and that costs a lot of transport, a lot of sea transport, a lot of efforts. So if you produce it in India, it goes in conjunction with our sustainable development goals, because we create jobs, we create a base for people, we have less pollution by transporting, so that are the main reasons to invest in India, and not the scheme from the government.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And Flynn, your comments on what the Indian government has put forward as incentives and opening up and reforms and tax cuts, etc.
Yes. So of course I cannot speak from my own experience like Paul can, but so what we've heard a lot from especially SMEs that we're talking with, and it really agrees on what Paul said, is that such a package is never the decision factor. So it helps if you already want to go. It can be an extra push maybe. But many SMEs that we're talking to right now, they are mostly focused on getting everything together in this crisis, and market expansion is a bit on the backlog now, and especially when it comes to investing.
Okay.
Yeah. So
clear. So it's not a reason in itself. It can sort of be a nice oil to lubricate whatever you're doing there, but the actual business case is leading. I'm going to see, because we received some questions beforehand from Alexander Hilkema from Aircofin, and these are very practical questions, and maybe we can address those to start with. I think some of them are addressed to possibly Manoj, you can answer. So I don't know if Alexander is there in the audience.
Yes, I am.
Okay, Alexander, would you very briefly introduce yourself and then ask your questions as briefly as possible? We've got about half an hour for a discussion, a little bit less. So please go ahead with your questions.
I'm Alexander. I have a joint venture in India. We produce syn tubes for the oil industry, which is a major industry. So like Mr. Oosterhout, we are not suffering from COVID, maybe from the low oil price. But our Polish factory works still 24 hours a day. In the Netherlands, it's okay. But in India, we need to supply. That is a full stop. So the questions that I put were actually the questions from my managing director there. Actually, he is not aware of any support. So he said they are forced to pay all salaries. But we expect after the startup, don't forget that we lost at the moment, we opened yesterday, more than half of the staff because they're somewhere lost in India. We have no clue where. So the question was if there will be any compensation for, let's say, the upcoming months when we start up. And the same question is for, we are forced to have a lot of, for good reasons, safety measurements. Is there also support for that?
Manoj.
And we're an SME.
Yeah. So hi. So this very relevant question which all SMEs are asking. So I think your jurisdiction is Telangana, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't say that we opened. But that's another interesting thing. That's conflicting. National regulation and state regulation. They're really conflicting.
Yeah, right. So it's a very valid point. And how see, the intent of the government is to give stimulus. And thing is that you're spending on the COVID, because of COVID, what things you're spending upon for that, I think they are not discussing currently. The priorities are right now to provide to SMEs on wage support. Like, for example, they are asking you to pay 3-4 months wage, and that wage is very difficult for you because you are not in operations and you don't have money to pay them. So they are thinking of wage support, and for that they are in discussion with some social security agency. We call it in India ESI, Employee and State Insurance. So they are in discussion with them. So those for the employee who are registered with ESI. So whether is it possible to take some reserves from there and give that wage support to companies like yours, SMEs. And apart from that, as I mentioned earlier, they are primarily looking to give, say, moratorium in terms of some loan repayment, deferment, and taxes like GST, state GST also you're paying. That's a big hit. Even for oil, your product, it may be categorized maybe 12 or 18%, right? It may be somewhere there. So for that, that's a big hit, and which you have to deposit on a quarterly and monthly basis. And for that deferral, they are in discussion with the state government. And as I said earlier, the problem here is since economic activity is not functioning, the states are not having money to give this stimulus package. And states are primarily dependent on central government, where central government has to release some fund. And since the situation is very fluid, while they have already formed committees, and committees have recommended many measures, and a few measures I have already discussed. So we can shortly expect some announcement on government on stimulus packages for the SMEs. And we don't know what all package they will announce, but they will surely announce, and I can keep you posted separately also on that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Manoj. I think there was a question from Mario Sana of the city of Maastricht. Mario, if you'd like to state very briefly your question, and then I think we've got a question from Paul Singh. So please go ahead, Mario.
Let me introduce myself first. Hello, everyone. My name is Mario Sana. I work for the city of Heerlen and live in this beautiful city of Maastricht. Briefly, to respond to your question about the SMEs and the possibilities and the changes, we are living in a time now where old doctrine and new doctrine is either in conflict or in dialogue. Also in the city of Heerlen, and an entrepreneur is an entrepreneur, and they have questions. A normal entrepreneur doesn't want to be dependent on government funding. We are not the city, the entrepreneurs are the city. And the questions that they have is, there is an acceleration of transition in social connections. And the ones that are adapting quickly, the ones that go fluid with this new way of communicating, they are saying, listen, we are closed now for about 6 weeks, and they are scared that the logistic transport ways will differ to other countries or to other systems. And in the Netherlands now, central government has said that we would like to try it inclusively and sustainability. And in the city of Heerlen, there is an ongoing hub. I don't know if I can call it a hub. It's an osmosis of entrepreneurs that want to connect digitally. You understand what I'm saying?
So are you referring to the fact that there is going to be sort of sustainability is an issue, and that was always on the agenda. So with COVID-19, do companies have to organize themselves so that their supply chains are more sustainable? Absolutely. And more a survival of the fittest if they're able to do it? Is that, who are you directing this question to?
To you, Ms. Tampa, because in the beginning you asked what are the problems and what are problems that small SMEs are facing. And my job in the city of Heerlen is I speak to a lot of SMEs that are starting, and the troubles that they are facing is this inclusiveness, this sustainability makes the thinking about a completely new business plan, not the old model.
Sure. I understand. I'm going to ask Paul maybe to maybe answer that question. So if supply chains have to change themselves also because of the pressure, because of general sustainability guidelines, regulation, but also because of this new situation, what does then one do? Any thoughts from you, Paul?
Yes, well, an entrepreneur wants to stay alive, and he doesn't give a shit whether he does that green or not green. If he can stay alive and he can be a little green at the same time, he will do so. But survival comes at the first place.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. I'm just gonna, sorry. There you have a succinct answer. I'm just going to jump to Paul. Paul Singh, you had a question to Manoj. If you can just bring yourself up, unmute yourself, and quickly introduce yourself and ask your question.
Yes, hi Manoj. I'm Paul.
Paul.
We have a textile manufacturing company in Gurgaon in Delhi, and as we have a seasonal business, this season we have to close down with a big loss because March till August we don't have any orders anymore, and we are piled up with a lot of stock in the garment industry. So my question is the government or the banks are they making any plans to make a financial support?
Yeah, so as of now, the package which is announced is what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring down the loan rate. But the loan moratorium which they have announced for the companies like you, that cannot be effective at this stage. While they have plans to, of course, extend further loan and in consultation with Reserve Bank of India, how to finance companies which are suffering. So unfortunately, there will not be any waiver or something, but what they're trying to do is that suppose you have a tax cost, how they can defer the tax cost for you, or how they can help you in getting a finances to sustain your business at a low interest rate. So they're not discussing the exemptions, rather they are trying to give financial support, of course, on a deferred payment arrangement basis.
Yeah, and what about the wages? Because we have 150 people working in the factory, and we are forced to pay them because the government told us we cannot fire them. So what about the financial support?
Yeah, so wage support is something which government is working upon. They have formulated a committee which is trying to focus on SMEs, if you qualify into that league, small and medium enterprises. Yeah. So what they're trying to do is that to SMEs to sustain business, and where they in some state they have mandatorily mentioned like you have to pay 3-4 months salary.
Yeah.
So there are states like Haryana. I don't know what Haryana state government's view on this, but some states have mentioned that you have to pay say minimum wages and you have to pay for these particular months. Yeah, so they are aware of this situation, and they are in discussion with the state government, provincial governments, and they're trying to work on a package where they can get some wage support to such companies which are impacted, with a company like yours, which are impacted badly due to COVID, and you have a lot of stocks, no business, but still you have to pay for the wages. Yeah, they are working on it, and you can see some announcement soon.
Yeah, do you know any timeline for when it's in India?
So
he's really grilling you, Manoj.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm used to it because I'm working a lot with many European companies and Asian companies, and for all of us a difficult time, and I'm used to answering all such questions. So Paul, really, I would like to answer the question with the affirmative, say 1 month, 2 months, or 1 week, 2 weeks. But the problem here is the consultation is going on for last 2-3 weeks, and as of now, no consensus has been there between the central and the state governments because of various issues. But I was listening to our chief economic advisor's interview on one of the online newspapers, news agencies. So where he has said they are working on it and they want to announce at the earliest, and as soon as they have a sense of from where they can bring that cash together. Like one of the mechanisms which they have discussed is how to utilize that ESI, money lying with ESI, Employee State Insurance, and how to bring that money here. So if they can think about the financing modes, then definitely they will announce at the earliest. But I can't give you the specific timelines for it.
It's the same like the GST.
Okay, I had one more question actually from Alexander. Thanks, Paul. That was very useful, I think, for everybody. I think Alexander had another question which had to do with migrants. So the workers who have been now scattered all over India. I don't know if he's still there. Maybe you'd like to ask that one question, which is maybe relevant to a lot more people.
Yeah, well, I'm still here. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. When we opened, we had what is typical for a smaller factory is that about half of the staff, in our case, it's by coincidence half of it is fixed term, so people that operate the machines, and half of them, and Dutchmen would even refer to it as a social welfare project. We hire day workers, and we provide them with also with housing, and they live in the village. That's okay. One of the problems in our area, of course, is the extremely tense labor market. So a lot of our employees, even the fixed one, are coming from different states. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the fixed staff are lost, and they cannot travel at all because the transportation stopped. And all of our temporary staff, we have no clue where it is. So the question was, yeah, it's not really a question because I think nobody can answer it. What will happen with them?
Anybody, any thoughts on how one can manage this uncertainty around, well, the human resources, in fact?
So in fact, hi, this is Manoj. So hi, Alexander. So I will try to answer it, though I am not expert in this. I'm not part of the government policy measures in any state or center. So, but I will try to answer this question. So what happened initially when this is the third phase of lockdown 3.0. So this third series, what happened? They tried to start open up factories, and they have started relaxing transportation within the state. Of course, there are challenges of traveling from outside other states. And they in fact, what happened, Telangana, other and Karnataka, and a few more states, they announced the special trains for migrants to go back. And but many industry bodies complained to the government that if you allow all these migrants to go back to the state, so you will have labor crunch in your state. And in fact, yesterday what they have done, they have cancelled those trains, which I personally believe which is not fair. We should not do it. Like if a migrant labor wants to go back, they should allow to go back. But this was one of the measures which is taken by few states, and a lot of hue and cry happened. So very complex situation right now. The business people want the migrant back. Migrants are saying that they are not being treated properly in the state, where they have lack of food and supplies and basic necessities. And see, the thing is that this COVID is primarily because of hygiene, right? So if you don't have basic things, so you're very easy to get this COVID-19, get into the COVID-19 virus trap. So because of that fear, people are going to their states. So government is aware. So one of the measures which they have taken, I think a bit harsh, was cancelling those trains. They had a specific trains for their respective states. But this situation will be there, and as your economy will open up, like any state, you will see more and more people joining offices. And yes, what you see within 2-3 weeks, you will also see interstate movement of people. So by that time, you will see more and more labor force. At this stage, you have to live with the limited labor force you have. So that's my personal
by
view
coincidence, it's the 30% limit that's obligatory.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. I have one question which I'd like to ask both Flynn and Paul. There's a question whether, because of this situation, do you see a risk that producers or service providers will be asked to or themselves go back to producing on their own shores? I think if this will, well, you heard about the whole trend of locally producing more, this over dependence on globalization. So I think that might be a question worth pondering. So both Flynn and Paul, maybe you'd like to take that question.
Yes, I've heard that stories, but in my view, production should place where the source material is. Where is the raw material? When you have mines or you grow food, there is a source, resource that is based for your production. And in my view, that's where the production should be. Otherwise, we will carry around raw materials all over the world. And the raw materials, you need a lot more volume in transportation than for the final products. So yes, I hear stories, but you should produce also for the market with the resource available in that market.
Sure, that's a fair point. For some areas, IT sector, service sector, of course, it's a different matter where, you know, you have sort of a globally distributed production model. But Flynn, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this particular issue of sort of returning the clock, turning back the clock on globalization, as it were.
Yeah, so I think you read quite a lot about it in the papers and about the glocalizing, I think they call it. And then I agree with Paul. I think it really depends on also on the product.
Sure.
But if you, so I'm you could call me a millennial, and so if you look at consumer products, then for my age group, it's really a plus in general if you can say produce in, I don't know, the Netherlands or locally or Belgium instead of China, for instance. So maybe for consumer goods, it could be. I can imagine that. And another thing, so we get a lot of questions right now from Dutch companies, from buyers actually, who have difficulties, you know, who can't go to China or to India to buy the products. And also with regarding to quality control in factories, so that the agency they're working with normally somewhere in China can't go to the factory because of the quarantine situation between the provinces. So, but that's I would say a short-term issue. And yeah, conclusion I would say I think it really depends on your product, but wouldn't surprise me if certain, especially production, would move back to either Netherlands or Europe.
Sure.
More.
So one reason is, of course, to mitigate the risk, but the other one is also if there are regulations that that demand that you're more green in your production, the point that Mario brought up. But let's leave it at that. I think we've had a good discussion and debate. More to follow, of course, in our next sessions. I would actually like to thank all our speakers, all our participants a lot for this, you know, really nice interactive conversation, and hand it over to Edith, maybe our chairman, to just make a quick summary and close for today. And yeah, again, thank you very much for that. Edith, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vidya. Thank you very much, Paul, Flynn, Manoj, and all the people present in this call. We're very happy to have you all here. And from what we heard today, also the very nice interaction between all of you and the interesting questions is that, of course, the impact of COVID-19 is not something that is only of today or last week or 2 months ago. It brings us to think about things differently, to reconsider things which we thought were normal and which we thought would be for the next century, or at least for the next few years. And that's the good aspect of it, reconsidering things. What we also see is that more than ever, and that's also what came out of all that our speakers were talking about, more than ever, even if it is for the time being online, we need to talk to each other, to be cooperative in how we approach international business, because quite honestly, and what we also see is, for example, in the Netherlands, we are taken care of very, very well. In other countries, it's less, but with respect to international trade, the international entrepreneur is dependent on the international market and on other international buyers or other international entrepreneurs. Therefore, we need networks and we need platforms and organizations helping each other, and being the organization to turn to investigate what the needs and the problems are, to enforce even more the relationships that are between us, even if we cannot see us into each other's eyes other than digitally for the moment, to share regulations worldwide, to also talk about best practice for others, to help each other, and to virtually giving each other a hand in speeding up international trade and helping each other where we can. Therefore, this new situation also gives new opportunities of cooperation, helping each other. Of course, a personal contact can never be replaced by virtual platforms, but this is the best that we can do for the moment. And it's great that we can develop this all together and that you're all here helping each other. And I think this really makes a big difference for international trade within our scope. For NICCT, this of course is between India and the Netherlands, but as Flynn already said, they are investigating it worldwide, and we can also learn from best practice from other chambers where we participate in a bi-weekly, as NICCT, in a bi-weekly talk to see what others are doing, and we are paying it forward to you so that you can take advantage of the knowledge worldwide and hopefully helping you in speeding up international trade as quickly as possible. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all for preparing. Thank you, Vidya, for a great moderatorship, and looking forward to seeing you on our next online session.
Edith, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to add, this is Mrinal from the Embassy of India. Thanks so much. It's been a very informative session. Thank you, Paul, Flynn, and Manoj for your very insightful contribution. I just wanted to add that the Embassy of India has been working closely with Invest India in India to work on issues being faced by Dutch MNCs in India. We've already resolved quite a few issues that they faced due to the lockdown. And anyone does want to contact us, please do. You can contact us through NICCT, and we can help you also to bring your issues to the notice of the Indian government, who's also in the process of formulating policies to deal with the SMEs. So thank you so much, and thank you for organizing this, Vidya and Edith and Patricia.
Thank you very much, Rinalini. The cooperation with the embassy is really great, and it's great to work hand in hand. And this is very important to also give the support that is really needed now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mrinalini. Thank you, everybody. I think we are closing for today. Just a note to Mario, who had still a question. Can I ask you to join our next session on the 28th and bring your question, because I think we've reached the end of today's session. Thank you all. Thank you to my colleagues at NICCT for supporting the audience, and a big thank you to all the speakers and the participants.
You're welcome.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.